Alright, I know why you clicked the video, alright? You saw the thumbnail, you're here to defend your silly little circus show, alright? Listen, alright? I drew the thumbnail for the engagement bait, and if you're watching this video, it worked. Hi! I don't hate the Amazing Digital Circus, alright? Now put your hopefully metaphorical hate boner away, because I want to talk about indie animation. Indie animation, alright? It's without a doubt that indie animation and indie products in general have surged in popularity among the AAA and quadruple A slop we've had in these past few years. Indie animation in particular, though, has skyrocketed in terms of popularity because of this small, underground, independent little animation publishing company called Glitch. Glitch is run by two hobo bros named Luke and Kevin Lerwichigal, who have pioneered indie animation by doing this very, very strange thing that most big studios don't do, called giving your team the time and money needed to make amazing shit. I grew up with the content that these guys would make on YouTube, so it's really cool seeing how they have helped this new era of independent animators succeed with IPs like the Amazing Digital Circus, Murder Drones, Gaslight District, their newly released Knights of Guinevere, and newly acquired Lackadaisy. Glitch has done amazing work and made amazing efforts to show people what happens when a team of artists has the tools they need to succeed properly. No dumb deadlines, no quota to reach, just artists with passion, and that's a great thing we need. Every episode of every show has hundreds to tens of millions of views, and they've even been lucky enough to have their shows premiere on major streaming services like Amazon Prime and Netflix. But it's not just Glitch. In general, indie artists, animators, and game devs have all made amazing projects. Though, there's this one indie series on YouTube that I still believe deserves much more love and appreciation in this modern surge of indie animation appreciation and respect that has existed long before Glitch was even a concept. This won't be a comparison. I just really want to talk about this amazing show called Gilda Guide. Now, what is Gilda Guide? Well, I'll tell you, it's both a show and a guy. This is Gilda Guide. Gilda Guide is an indie animated series on YouTube, every episode published under a channel of the same name. Gilda Guide is a show set in the universe of Heinz Dojo, another YouTube channel that for years has served as a community where various animators create and share videos of stick figure fights, and animations usually associated with some kick-ass music and visuals as accompaniment. Animators would make characters and pit their characters against other animators' characters, and they would fight, and the coolest one wins! It's so cool! I personally grew up with a lot of these videos and have always thought Heinz Dojo and RHG was such a cool concept as this guild of talented animators who create and collaborate with each other, and I always enjoy tuning into what's going on over there. As you would notice through Heinz Dojo and its many animations and characters though, most of these animations are done either hand-drawn or with tweening and using software specifically for these little stick figures like Pivot or Stick Nodes. Gilda Guide is a hand-drawn medieval action-inspired animation series created by the talented Michael Moy. He's the Gilda Guide guy, not the... Anyway, who is Gilda Guide? Well, apart from being the creator of the show, Gilda Guide, pronounced Gilded Guy, I find myself saying it just like Gilda Guy. I think I've actually done that a few times in this recording. Is a gray stick man with golden dreams. He's very round and polite looking with green eyes. He's seen wearing shiny gold armor and brandishing a bold red cape and a shiny red elastic sword. This kind of anatomy would be very consistent in the show. Just don't expect to see a lot of characters wearing pants. Much like the last video, we'll be talking about a series where the characters don't speak. But this time, there's no robotic warbling, there's no occasional sentence, there's actually just zero vocals throughout the show's runtime. No words, no noises, not even a cough or a sneeze. All of the storytelling and exposition is told through this beautiful original score and kick-ass fight scenes with high-octane music. Think like those old 1960s cartoons and movies, but if they fucked hard! This series means a lot to me, as it's one of my biggest inspirations for my own artwork and story projects. You'll find out about those later. It's not a show that's horribly underrated, as every episode is free and manages to bring in million views every time. I just feel it should be talked about more. You know what? I'm not explaining myself. I love this show and I want to talk about it. So fuck it! Sorry for getting violent. In this video, I'll be going in depth into every episode, more or less, and analyzing what makes this series so amazing, and how Michael has quite literally struck gold. See what I did there? Now, there are three things that make this show what it is. The animation, the music, and the story. Much less the story itself, but just how it's told. The story itself is nothing to write home about. It's about a silly little guy in golden armor who goes on adventures and fights amazing people. The show is short, currently has about 8 episodes, along with a little spin-off and an origin story. Despite the contextual simplicity, this show is still very, very amazing. The overarching story, there really isn't none. The lore isn't too complex, it's literally just a guy having fun, kicking ass. What's more to like? Let's start with the animation, alright? The animation in this series improves substantially with every installment. The first actual Gilda-Guy episode was a duel against a character named Fry, and was made in a 24-hour time crunch as part of an animation challenge for RHG. This isn't necessarily a proper representation of Michael's talent as an animator, as he has had several animation projects before this that to this day hold up as insanely stellar. But keep in mind, he made this animation in just a day, a fight animation where every sound effect is synced to the music. While not representative of his talent, it's still very impressive feat in animation, all things considered. As you watch every single episode though, you can see more and more as the animation and storytelling improve. My personal favorite scene is during the final battle of episode 8. The way the movement flows with the vibrant colors and visuals as the song of choice plays in the background just leaves me stunned in every single episode. Not just this one. Much like the John Wick movies, every installment is continuously better than the last and became his best work upon release. To dive into more of what I mean, I want to talk about one of my favorite, maybe even my favorite episode of the entire series, episode 3, Basement Busk. Don't feel too confused about the fact I'm starting with the 3rd episode first. This is actually the episode where storytelling actually becomes a bit more prominent, as the first 2 are mostly just duels for the fun of it. So don't worry too much about missing anything of value right now. Now, it's crazy because what I like about this show is mostly the fight scenes. I think the fight scenes are insanely well choreographed, and this episode has none of that, but this is a purely animation spectacle and I want to talk about it. In this episode, Gilda-Guy needs more gold to fix his armor up after a battle had in the previous episode with Jade. So he takes up street performing with his magic green pen with varied success, albeit, though he sees an advertisement for a basement busk where people gather to appreciate performances by strangers, and he attends this hoping to get a bigger audience and maybe even get some tips and tricks along the way. Though the thing with Gilda-Guy is that he tends to have a hard time actually asking for donations. He much enjoys the smiles on people's faces from what he does and feels a bit weird about actually asking people for the money. But with the help of a cute red-haired singing girl named Penny that most people actually thought was a dude, he learns to have fun and let himself enjoy the sweat of his brow at the same time. It's a really sweet episode considering what comes before and what comes after. And I really enjoy the visuals in this one especially. Like, look at the animation on this smoke trail. Such a detail is very minimal in hindsight of this entire episode, but look at how clean and animated it is. And even the bouncy piano by this guy right here. The animation in this is so visually expressive and bouncy, and I really just like looking at it. This isn't even close to the series' best work visually, especially because further down the line, this series becomes a serious animation spectacle. I mean, this series pulls off amazing things. And I'm not going to show a lot of it, because I really believe a lot of this show is best experienced blind, like how I did waiting for every episode to release. These gold statues, even the backgrounds are just beautiful. Now granted, he doesn't work on these on his own. He does have a team of people who help on animation for things like the cleanup and what have you. Once again, when your characters don't speak, everything else must work overtime. The animation, expression, and the sound design in this show are absolutely godlike. Gilda-Guy's helmet, and frankly the rest of him, also follows Spider-Man rules, where since the face is covered, a majority of the emotion expressed relies on the eyes, of which these characters have huge of. The face and hands tend to be the most expressive parts of the human body, and when those parts are exaggerated proportionally, you have to make sure everything is visually consistent, and boy are they. Every single scene in this show is just so amazingly put together, and as a show and an art form, Gilda-Guy is unironically golden, a true work of art in my opinion. Up next, the story. I know I had mentioned that the story itself isn't very complicated and complex, but it's still very nice, and I would love to talk about it a little bit. Every episode after episode 1 kind of has its own goal and its own story that it wants to tell, featuring Gilda-Guy and a message about his character and who he is. They remind you that Gilda-Guy kind of grew up in a sheltered home because homeboy has anger issues and does not like to follow rules. But let's start with the home in question. Let's start with the origin story. The origin story of Gilda-Guy is that he grew up in a factory. He works under his mom and dad in a paint industry where he paints. He paints for a living, though he yearns for a much grander life. He wants to be an adventurer. He wants to see the world. though his father's ambitions for him kind of get in the way of actually chasing his dream. Though one day he sees a green star in the sky that inspires him to just create things. He paints and he envisions a dream where he's covered in a golden armored suit and travels the world meeting amazing people and following the star that guides him every step of the way. Though his parents disagree with him, after a kick-ass musical number and a smack to the face, as most problems are solved in this show, you'll learn, his father eventually realizes that his son means well, and he sees the star in his eyes and decides to give him the gold and let him set out on his own journey. Now, admittedly, I did just explain the origin story, but I still think the actual origin episode explains this in such a better way than I did, with its visuals and, if anything, lack of verbal explanation, so please watch that anyway. In episode 1, he fights Fry just because he cooked his bacon bad. In episode 2, he fights Jade, someone who is very strict and likes to play by the rules, and Gildaguy is someone who is not that. And Gildaguy manages to beat her unarmed on her own turf. In episode 3, he learns the art of the ask and letting people support him in the ways he needs. In episode 4, however, he learns the horrors of the world, as at nighttime in the woods, he encounters a deadly sludge monster named Bog. This episode tackles Gildaguy learning the horrors of the unknown and puts him against an enemy who literally gets in his head, and he learns to maintain his fighting spirit no matter how bad things get in a battle. This fight actually has long-lasting effects in the next 2 episodes, as it's one of the most traumatizing experiences for him. In episode 5, there actually is no enemy and there is no fight scene again. In episode 5, Gildaguy comes across a town that is very luxurious and finds himself tempted by greed and speedrunning the way to the high life and just abandoning his morals. He struggles against the green-eyed cowboy, a vision of himself as this egotistical, high-riding maniac who doesn't value the lives of the people around him and only values success and riches. Yet, he tries to stay sane and remember why he's doing what he's doing. It's such a cool episode because it really leaves you wondering. The first time I watched it, I really didn't understand what was happening. Then again, I was younger and stupid, but again, it's still really cool. In episode 6, much like what I mentioned before about episode 4 having lasting effects on Gildaguy's mental and how the story would progress, in episode 6 he meets another wandering traveler named Oxab, who's also wounded by his battle trauma, and the two learn to fight through their trauma together and not let pain shape who they are. This episode is actually currently the most viewed one out of the series, maybe partially because it was shown in Fortnite, of all things, a year after its release. And they also made a skin for him, which I'm mad I didn't get when it came out because I didn't have the money. Episode 6 also teaches the audience about the conductivity of gold. In episode 7, Gildaguy teams up with a random white boy and learns the horrors about idolizing and memorializing such a violent tradition, and appreciating it not for its violent history, but for what it means for the world around him. And episode 8 tackles the concept of trying to help someone similar to you, though villainized and is fairly long gone in their ways. In episode 8, Gildaguy meets the Dragon of Mar, who was nothing but hospitable to him, is villainized by the village around him for his destructive nature as a dragon. All the episodes have their own goal and their own message to send regarding to Gildaguy's character, and I think they all managed to do so in a really appropriate way that, combined with all the visuals and the music, they're all really amazing episodes. Speaking of the sound design, Gildaguy has an original score that is really stellar, and overall the sound design combined with that are really great. Whether it's the childlike whistle whenever Lillian's on screen, the clinks and clanks of Gildaguy's armor, the sudden music note changes when like a character has a change in emotion, and even the tonal differences when different characters show up, like this scene when Andre shows up, and instead of the little piano tiles that Gildaguy has, he has a scratchy guitar. I really do think that the sound design and the music are what shaped this show to be as amazing as it is. Now, where am I going with all this? I've been glazing this show for about 15 minutes. What am I trying to tell you, the viewer of this video, about this show? Well, if you don't already know, and I failed at telling you, I'm trying to tell you to watch this show. And please give it a genuine watch, as it's one of my favorite things on YouTube, animation-wise, and I believe it's Probably my favorite indie animated show of all time. I really do enjoy this show. Its visuals, its music, especially the music. The music that plays during the fight scenes is the only kind of vocals we get, as the songs usually do have lyrics, except for one of them. And the songs he chooses are amazing. And this series has actually introduced me to a lot of amazing songs that I actually still listen to today. Like A Real Life by Greek Fire or Rockin' Dead by Onlap. Really good music choices, and the music choices are also so incorporated into the fights themselves and fit the tone of the videos and fit the tone of the story. It's just really amazing seeing every element of this show come together and make something so cool. And I think this series should be appreciated, especially now more than ever, with indie animation on such a rise. That is honestly about it right now. I'm gonna keep an eye out for Fortnite when that skin comes back in the shop, hopefully. And please, go give Guild a Guy a watch. And if you've already watched it, tell a friend to watch it. Introduce it to somebody else and share this amazing show with them, because I really do love it. It's one of my biggest inspirations for some of my own art that I've been working on for the past few years. And it's special to me because, frankly, I grew up with this series. The first episode I ever saw was the resounded version of episode 2 when it originally came out. I didn't keep up with the series because naturally, as a young stupid child, I didn't remember much of everything, but still, this series is very special to me, and I would appreciate it if I would love if this series makes a fraction of the impact on you guys, should it interest you, and if I've sold you on the show enough. I actually believe that Guild a Guy is nearing what might be its final episode, episode 9. So, you know what? Enjoy the show while it's out. And I know I'll be there waiting to see what Michael and his team cook up next. That's all for this video. Let me know what you guys thought down in the comments, and make sure to subscribe if you manage to tolerate my obnoxious voice and my stupid ramblings for 2 videos in a row now. Make sure you guys are all fed, safe, and healthy at home with those you love. And I will see you guys in the next video. Bye-bye. I love you all, and take care.